Next decade, so by 2031, the number of people diagnosed with Parkinson's in Canada is expected to double. Right now, around 25 people find out every day that they have the condition for which there is no known cure. 7 years ago, Nagy was one of those people, and she joins us this morning with her story. Great to meet you, Caitlin.
Great to meet you, too.
I think a lot of our viewers are going to look at you and be surprised when they see that this is a young woman that we're talking to about Parkinson's. You actually found out you had this condition at 31 years old. What was that like for you?
It was shocking, and I was definitely in disbelief. I totally did not acknowledge the diagnosis for the first 6 years and spent that time looking at other alternative therapies and trying to figure out ways in which that I could get better. It wasn't actually until after my pregnancy that I chose to start taking medication that I was able to realize that it was Parkinson's.
What was happening in your life that you went and even found out you had this diagnosis?
It actually just started with a little bit of shaking in my wrists and a lot of anxiety, and I thought it was related to a muscular injury.
And then you got this diagnosis. You mentioned, we just showed pictures of you being pregnant, and I can see the pictures of your lovely daughter over your shoulder, 19-month-old Bridget. How did pregnancy affect your Parkinson's?
Oh, you know what? It was actually, I was hoping that it would make things better, but it made things worse. It was really a really difficult pregnancy to the point where I couldn't walk across the room without being able to hold on to something. I had to have help getting dressed. My husband had to cut my food for me. It was really terrifying because it was, being trying to be a new mom and expecting that, as well as wondering if this was ever going to get better or if it was just going to get worse and worse.
You said something I found interesting, that your symptoms are linked to your menstrual cycle, which is something that I haven't heard before. What does that look like for you? What does that feel like for you?
So it's actually very common for women with Parkinson's to have issues with their menstrual cycle. So 1 out of 4 weeks of the month, the symptoms become so bad that medication doesn't really work well. And you can be to the point of not being able to walk around the room, having trouble with a lot of motor functions, and high levels of anxiety and apathy as well.
You felt a lot of shame and embarrassment around having Parkinson's. What did you wish that you could have known sooner?
Honestly, I wish that I knew that there were so many other people in my situation around my age. I think the biggest thing for me was that my understanding of Parkinson's was it was an elderly person's disease, 70 and older. And I really was in disbelief that it would be possible for somebody in their 30s to have Parkinson's. And I just found it really difficult to find anybody that I could relate to. And I think the most important thing here is for anybody that is going through this right now, please know that there are other people going through this. And the best thing to do is reach out to places like Parkinson Canada so that they can align you with people like me and so many others that are going through this, so that you have that support network that you can align with.
Caitlin, we started off with a statistic that number of people diagnosed with Parkinson's is going to double in 10 years. Why do you think that's happening?
To be honest with you, I think it's really relative to a lot of the toxins that are in the foods that we're eating these days. It's been proven to be linked to different things like mold toxins or toxins in pesticides, things like that. I think it's also really relative to stress and high anxiety as well. So there's a lot of health factors at play, but I do think that it is very man-made in the sense that we can control it if we're able to understand how it correlates to things that we're ingesting, bacteria in the gut, and trying to level that out and heal it.
Caitlin, really quickly before we go, how has pandemic affected you?
To be honest with you, I've fully enjoyed it. It's allowed me time to accept my diagnosis and be comfortable with it and come forward and open up about it.
It's a real pleasure to meet you, Caitlin. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and with the rest of the country.
So nice to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me.